First of all, just a huge thank you. I've gotten to know not all of you, but many of you personally, and this is a pretty extraordinary group of not just teachers, but of human beings. And as an educator, as a parent with 2 kids in public schools, thank you for what you do every single day. Thank you for the difference that you're making. Thank you for the example you set for all of us of service and commitment and tenacity. And it just means more than me personally that you know. Secondly, no surprise to anyone here, it's a time of a huge amount of change, and we can sort of, can have a serious conversation about it. Raising standards, new assessments, thinking different about teacher and principal evaluation. Lots of change in a short amount of time is never easy. I think it's all good change, but how we sequence this, how we be thoughtful, how we get to the other side, and keep the country moving in the right direction, moving away from the dumbing down standards. I think hurt kids for so long in this country. It's a complicated thing to get right, and I love your honest feedback into what's working, what's not. We're trying to partner, give states flexibility. You may have seen recently DC, which historically was a pretty dysfunctional school system, is now the fastest improving city, fastest improving state in the nation. Kaya Henderson, the superintendent there, I'm a big fan of, as they move forward with higher standards, new assessments. She wants next year to remove from teacher eval the student test scores, give that information to teachers for their own knowledge, but sort of take a pass for next year. That kind of thoughtfulness we think makes sense. Again, we can't dictate state by state what folks should do, but we want to provide as much flexibility at the federal level to states and districts as they think things through, and happy to have a conversation about that. Second, I just have to reflect, I just met with an amazing group of some teachers, but many young men who are my brother's keeper here in Philly. And I just want to say one quick thing about school funding, because right here in Philly may be sort of ground zero where a public school system is being starved for resources. And the cuts here are just incomprehensible. And the loss of teachers, the loss of counselors, the loss of social workers, after-school programs, nurses, it's not who I think we are as a nation. And so as you guys think here collectively and go back home, for me it can't be about Republican and Democrat or left or right. Just as a nation, do we think of education as an investment, or do we think of it as an expense? And I'm convinced education is an investment. It's the best investment we can make. It's not an expense. But that belief is not shared as widely as I wish it was. And again, to see what's happening and what's not happening in places like Philly, those of you from North Carolina are experiencing this firsthand as well, it's simply not right. It's not fair. Just take 1 second so folks here have the numbers. On the early childhood side, I would argue that's the best investment we can make is in our babies as a nation. I've been proud that we've put about $1 billion behind increasing access and quality. Historically, our department did very, very little there. But as a nation, we rank something like 28th. And relative to other industrialized nations, for me, it's just, again, it's no badge of honor. It's nothing we can be proud of. And some of my toughest conversations were with my colleagues, other education ministers from other countries, who asked me why our nation, why the United States doesn't care more about our babies. That's a very difficult conversation to have, and I don't have a good answer there. So that's an early childhood side. K-12, you guys are living. Some places where the resources are sufficient, many where they're not. Higher ed, for those of you parents, grandparents trying to help people go to college, the cost of college is too high. And we're doing as much as we can to bring that down, make it more accessible and affordable. But for me, it's got to be cradle to career, not just babies, not just K-12, not just higher ed. And we have to stop pitting those different parts of the education continuum against each other, but we need to think about how we bring more resources to strengthen our nation. This has to be our nation's mission. And yes, we need a strong military, and that's good defense. I think our best offense as a nation is having the best educated populace in the world. And we have a long, long way to get there. The final thing I'll say is that, again, this is a room of just extraordinary, extraordinary educators. And I know you have lots of panels, and I'm one of many people speaking. I would just love to see, as this group continues to mature and move, you guys collectively figuring out what are the 1 or 2, not the 10, but the 1 or 2 or maybe 3 biggest issues that you want to work on together and challenge the country to get better at. And in a room this diverse, you're never going to have unanimous agreement, and not in every position. But I think the collective voice of teachers is not utilized nearly as much as it should be. And Ron talked about teach to lead, and I happy to go into that more. But this room, if you could get behind 1 or 2 or 3 things and speak not as individual teachers of the year, but speak as a national organization of some of the hardest working, most committed, most successful teachers, the power of that collective voice, I think, would be extraordinary. Again, there's a million things that you guys could work on. I have all kinds of suggestions. But again, it really shouldn't come from me. So I would just challenge you, as you hear from folks, if there's a way before the conference ends, and maybe there is, maybe there isn't, to really start to take the pulse of the group and figure out where you want to help to lead the country educationally. I'll just speak for myself. I would absolutely welcome that. I think many people around the country would as well. So thank you.